Welcome to a new season of Now Innovating, a research to impact series at the University of Calgary. I'm your host, Julia McGregor. For our Season 7 premiere, we are celebrating the launch of the XPRIZE Canada Hub at the University of Calgary. This is the first global XPRIZE hub to launch and the only hub location in Canada. The XPRIZE Canada Hub will serve as a connection point for researchers, academic institutions, industry, and community members to engage in groundbreaking XPRIZE initiatives. In this episode, I speak with UCalgary and XPRIZE alum Madison Savilow of Carbon Upcycling. Carbon Upcycling uses groundbreaking technology to convert carbon emissions and industrial waste byproducts into valuable local materials for low-carbon cement production. Hi, Madison, and welcome to Now Innovating.
Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm really excited about what Carbon Upcycling is doing. So to give our audience a bit of background, can you first tell us about the need for low carbon production in the cement industry?
Yeah, for sure. So Carbon Upcycling is a carbon capture and utilization company, but we view ourselves more as a waste to value company because of the materials we use. And really what we're addressing is the rising emissions that are happening from the cement sector in particular. This is tied to a couple of different things. First of all, there's an innate chemistry problem that we're trying to solve. So to actually formulate cement and produce cement, you have to heat up limestone to very, very high temperatures. And when you do that, the limestone releases CO2. So unless we start to find alternative materials to replace either the limestone or the cement, those emissions will keep on rising. The other side of the problem is the demand side. So we're about to see the built environment double in size by 2040 compared to the 2020 numbers, which is basically like building one New York City every month for 40 years.
Whoa.
So we really need to find alternative materials that can displace some of these very carbon-intensive products like cement.
Awesome, thank you for that context. That's a little scary thinking about how much the built environment is growing, but I'm glad you're looking at technology to help that. So with Carbon Upcycling's technology, it was developed with support from UCalgary researchers here at the university, which is awesome. So how is this technology used to capture carbon during the industrial production to create new products?
Yeah, so we have a process called mechanically assisted chemical exfoliation, and that in itself, that process is what we developed in part with support from the University of Calgary researchers, and that really is kind of a twofold approach. So first of all, we're going to exfoliate whatever solid feedstock it is that we're sequestering CO2 into. We use a lot of industrial byproducts like fly ash, steel slag, and clay. All of those come from either landfill or they're diverted from landfill, so waste materials. And we're able to break those down and increase the surface area of them in the presence of CO2. The CO2 that we use typically comes from flue gas, so it's a low purity CO2. And this actually makes us a full stack carbon capture and utilization company, which is super interesting. So we basically do a mineralization process with the CO2 attaching to the particle of powder of whatever solid feedstock it is that we're processing, and then that creates a cement replacement.
Oh my gosh, your technology sounds so cool. I would love to see how that works.
Well, I'd love to show you. We can take you on a tour.
Oh, let's go.
So this is the Innovating Alberta facility. It's called the Alberta Carbon Conversion Technology Center. And this was set up as part of the NRG COSIA Carbon XPRIZE back in, I think they started it in 2019 is when they started setting up the facility, and then we started having tenants kind of come in and take access to their bay. They have 5 bays here, and at the time there was 5 teams competing in this track for the Carbon XPRIZE. So this serves half of Calgary's electricity needs, and then we take the CO2 from that plant off of the flue gas, and each of the bays here have access to both CO2, like near pure CO2, and flue gas. So they have the option. The flue gas itself is only about 4% concentration CO2, so it's a lot less.
And you're the only company left over from the XPRIZE testing of that is still based out here?
So there was one company that was here just as of a couple months ago, but they've since moved out, and now we're the only ones here from the XPRIZE days. But this is what we call kind of our innovation center, because it allows us to test all of our new materials, some of our new designs for processing units, and really acts as a test bed for our innovation.
Very cool. What are we looking at here? We're in this giant tent facility. We got a giant metal thing.
Yeah, so this is our carbon capture and utilization system. And this is what we built during the Carbon XPRIZE. So at the time it was COVID, and we were only allowed about 8 people on site at a time to build it.
Wow.
So we all got very hands-on with this unit to scale it up to what we have today. And essentially how it works is we have this cold drum that gets filled with whatever solid feedstock it is that we're processing. Typically, it's going to be fly ash, just given the Alberta market. So we fill that up from the top, and then we pressurize this vessel with flue gas. So that will have the CO2 that's incorporated in that. And then as we pressurize it, we start to rotate it. And on the inside, we have media that kind of breaks up the particles of powder, and the CO2 molecule is able to fully sequester and mineralize to that particle of powder. So it's a one-step carbon capture and utilization process for this unit here. So it's that front mill. We then kind of offload all the material through the bottom, and then it then goes out to whatever ready mix partner we're working with.
I can't believe you built this. You built this giant thing of metal.
I know. I mean, not individually, all these different components came in from different vendors, and so yeah, there was a lot of people, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, that helped us build this and support us in this journey. But yeah, it was very hands-on to put it all together, for sure.
Wow. This is really impressive, Madison. But do you think we should head back to the interview?
Yeah, let's go.
Whoa, that was so fun. Thank you for showing me the facility.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm so excited. I understand how it works now.
Absolutely.
And so now that we know how it works, like I know you're continuing to explore new materials at Carbon Upcycling, through other research and development partnerships with researchers at the University of Calgary. Can you tell us more about the new materials that you're testing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use a whole bunch of different materials. We've actually tested over 45 different solid feedstocks to either sequester CO2 or become active cement replacements. Right now, the 3 biggest material buckets that we use are low-grade fly ash that come from landfills. There's billions of tons of it sitting in landfills around the world, and it really can't be used without processing it. So we're one of those technologies that are able to remediate this material and bring it up to a point where it can be used within the cement process. The second material that we use are steel slags. So these ones come from the steel industry. Of course, they're a byproduct from the steel making process. And really what those materials are meant to do are sit in landfill initially. We're able to divert those and beneficiate them, so again, they act as a cement replacement. Cool. What's super interesting about the steel slags is that currently the formulation of steel and the process that creates it creates slag that can be used within a concrete mix, but as they electrify their processes, it can no longer be used. So there's one sector that's decarbonizing through electrification that inhibits the cement sector from decarbonizing because it takes this material bucket away. And then the third material is clay. So very ubiquitous, it sits in your backyard. That's something that we're able to process, and it comes usually from mining operations and kind of offcuts from that. But yeah, those are the 3 big buckets that we try to focus on.
Very cool, all to make cement.
All to make cement replacements, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I know Carbon Upcycling has had a really exciting journey with innovation support, because I know back in 2018, Carbon Upcycling was a graduate from the CDL Rockies Prime Stream. There's also support from Innovating Calgary there at the university. And I know I'd be remiss not to talk about XPRIZE, because I know Carbon Upcycling was a finalist and an X Factor award winner in the NRG COSIA XPRIZE competition. So can you really speak to how participation in that XPRIZE competition has supported Carbon Upcycling to really grow and scale?
So XPRIZE is a really great organization to get involved with. Being part of the competitions really takes it to that next level. We were really fortunate to be part of the NRG COSIA Carbon XPRIZE, and being able to scale our technology as part of that competition. And just for context, we had a kind of a smaller lab scale unit. We were able to, as part of that prize competition, able to scale it over 1 million times in production capacity.
Wow.
So that took us all the way up to a commercial demonstration facility where we were able to partner then with local ready mix companies to deploy our cement replacements. And that was extraordinary. We would have not been able to do it near as fast without the support of XPRIZE and kind of that extra pressure, because we were part of this really big competition. And then of course the financial support and the resource support around the prize itself was really, really extraordinary. So that was something that we were very glad to be part of, for sure.
That's amazing. And I'm so excited too that we have the XPRIZE Canada Hub here at the University of Calgary, which will support other Canadian innovators in XPRIZE activities and like just hearing the story of carbon upcycling and how, that's really helped you. So what is next for carbon upcycling? What can we look forward to?
So we have a lot on the docket right now with carbon upcycling. So we've been producing materials since 2021. So that was kind of near the end of the XPRIZE is when we started that commercial demonstration. And that's been in the Calgary market. So that's been with a really great ready-mix partner called Burnco. And now we're looking to scale up even further. So in 2023, we created our first continuous operating system. This is different from a batch run system that we had previously. And this was a really big technical hurdle for us because it matches how industry performs. They are all continuous production units. So that was really exciting. And now we're scaling that up even further with a first of a kind project that will be at the Ash Grove cement plant in Mississauga in Ontario. It's actually the largest cement plant in Canada, and this will be the largest installation of CCU at a cement plant in the world. So super excited for that. That will come online, we're hoping by Q1 of next year. And then from there, we have a whole bunch of different project opportunities through Canada, the US, and some in Europe as well that we're looking to scale up towards. All of those with different feedstocks, whether that's the fly ash, steel slag, or clay.
That's fantastic. I'm so excited to see like where the company's going to continue to grow and go, and like the impact you do have on like the built environment. And I look forward to walking on a carbon upcycling cement sidewalk.
Yeah, you can actually do that already today, which is really exciting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So we've deployed actually sidewalks with the city of Calgary for the past few years. So yeah, if you're downtown Calgary, there's some likelihood that it maybe are concrete.
And I always like to wrap up these interviews because I always like to impart some advice because you're fantastic, you're entrepreneurial, you're innovative. So Madison, what advice do you have for students, who have a passion for innovation and entrepreneurship, but they weren't really sure like the education degree that they're in right now could really be applied to it? Like, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, we have some really extraordinary people on the carbon upcycling team that have come from unconventional backgrounds. I think of one in particular, our communications lead has a nursing degree, and he's a nurse on the weekends. So, you really don't have to fit the box to be in entrepreneurship. I was lucky enough to get into entrepreneurship through a startup, but my biggest piece of advice to students or people that are interested in deploying the same type of skill sets as entrepreneurship offers is to also look at it with an entrepreneurial mindset and do that within a large corporation through entrepreneurship. A really big gap and a big area of opportunity for folks is to really be the internal champion for innovation, and that really starts within a corporation and bringing these startups along, new innovation, and being able to change large corporations that are hard to move. So I think if that's the piece of advice that I would lead on, is just that entrepreneurship can really make just as big a change.
I love it. Thank you so much, Madison, for joining me today on Now Innovating.
Thanks so much for having me.
It really is amazing to think that in the future, built environments such as these could use carbon upcycling's concrete in their construction. To learn more about carbon upcycling, as well as the XPRIZE Canada Hub at the University of Calgary, visit our episode description to find links. And to learn how to move your research to impact in the UCalgary innovation ecosystem, visit ucalgary.ca/innovation.